Most people don't break when life becomes hard. They break when life refuses to make sense. The job ends, the relationship collapses, the body changes, the plan evaporates, and suddenly your mind starts running faster than reality, trying to force order onto something that will not obey. Here is the promise of this moment. In the next few minutes, you will learn how to stay calm when everything falls apart, not by pretending it isn't happening, but by meeting it with a steadier mind, a clearer sense of control, and a kind of inner freedom that does not depend on conditions cooperating. The hard truth is that crisis does not ask your permission. It arrives on ordinary days, through ordinary doors, and it does not negotiate with your calendar. You can be careful and still be harmed. You can be wise and still be surprised. A life built on the assumption of uninterrupted stability is not a life. It is a fragile arrangement waiting for the first real wind. The deeper reflection is that calm is not the absence of disturbance. Calm is a decision about where you will place your attention when disturbance is present. The Stoics did not imagine themselves immune to loss. They trained themselves to remain capable within it. They knew that the mind's first impulse is to widen the disaster, to turn one fact into an entire future. The body hears the mind's story and obeys it with adrenaline, tension, and a tightening of the world. But the mind can also tell a different story, truer, narrower, and more useful. This is happening. I am here. I will respond. A practical example is the modern kind of collapse that doesn't look dramatic until it becomes total. An email arrives late at night, a subject line sharp as a blade, and you feel the familiar internal drop. In seconds, you have written the next month in your head. You imagine meetings, humiliation, scarcity, conflict. Yet all you truly have is a message and a pulse that has begun to race. In that gap between the message and the meaning you attach to it, your freedom still exists. You do not control what was sent, but you can control the interpretation you are about to inflate into a sentence against yourself. Here comes the first reversal. Staying calm is not something you do after you understand what is happening. It is something you do precisely when you do not yet understand. The hard truth is that clarity often comes late. Waiting for certainty before you steady yourself means you will spend your most important moments in the least reliable state of mind. Panic feels like urgency, but it is mostly distortion. It narrows your options while insisting that you are acting quickly. The deeper reflection is that the Stoic idea of control is not pessimism. It is an honest map. Some things belong to you. Your judgments, your choices, your willingness to endure, your capacity to act with integrity. Other things do not. Outcomes, other people's reactions, the past, the raw fact of change. Anxiety thrives when we demand ownership over what cannot be owned. Inner peace is not the victory of having everything go well. It is the quiet competence of knowing what is yours to carry and what is not. A practical example is how quickly people confuse influence with control. You can prepare for an interview and still not get the offer. You can apologize sincerely and still be misunderstood. You can do excellent work and still be cut during a restructuring. When these things happen, the mind screams that the world has become unfair, and sometimes it has. But the more urgent question is, what part of this remains mine? Perhaps it is the decision to speak clearly, to keep your dignity, to keep learning, to keep your character intact when your circumstances refuse to cooperate. Here comes another reversal. Pain is not the opposite of peace. Often, it is the doorway to it. The hard truth is that the wish to never feel pain is a wish to never be fully alive. When everything falls apart, pain will visit, through grief, fear, and the sensation of being out of control. If you treat pain as an emergency that must be eliminated at once, you add a second suffering, the fear of feeling what you already feel. The deeper reflection is simple and severe. Discomfort is information, not a verdict. The Stoics spoke of impressions, those first waves of emotion and interpretation that crash into you before you have time to think. Their practice was not to suppress these impressions, but to pause before granting them authority. You can feel grief without declaring your life ruined. You can feel fear without declaring yourself doomed. You can feel anger without handing it the keys to your mouth. A practical example is the moment after a sudden loss, a breakup, a diagnosis, a debt you cannot immediately fix, when you reach for something that will numb you quickly. There is nothing immoral about wanting relief. But if relief becomes your only strategy, you remain dependent on the world staying soft. A steadier practice is to name what is present with precision. I feel threatened. I feel ashamed. I feel uncertain. Then you do something small and real. Drink water. Take a walk. Write down what is actually known. Contact one trustworthy person. Sleep. Not because these actions solve the crisis, but because they return you to a mind capable of solving anything at all. And here is the next reversal. When everything falls apart, your mind will insist that you must fix your entire life immediately. That is almost never true. The hard truth is that the demand for instant repair is often a form of despair wearing the costume of productivity. You cannot rebuild a house while the storm is still tearing through it. First, you stabilize. Then you plan. Then you act. The deeper reflection is that courage is not loud. It is often quiet and repetitive. It is choosing the next right action without needing it to feel heroic. It is refusing to make yourself smaller just because the world has become harsher. The Stoic does not say, "Nothing can hurt me." The Stoic says, "What hurts me will not make me abandon my principles." A practical example is what happens when your public composure breaks, when you cry at work, when you freeze in a conversation, when you miss a deadline because your life is unraveling. Modern culture makes a god out of performance, and when performance fails, it tells you that you are failing as a person. But a steadier view is available. You are a human being encountering pressure. Your task is not to maintain a flawless image. Your task is to recover your agency without cruelty toward yourself, and to take responsibility where it is real. If this kind of calm, honest inking matters to you, subscribe so you can return to it when you need it most. And if you're willing, leave a thoughtful comment about what staying calm looks like in your real life, not the ideal version, the real one. Now, as we continue, let the question become sharper. What does it mean to remain free when the outside world is no longer friendly? The hard truth is that many people live as if their inner life is a mirror of outer events. If things go well, they feel worthy. If things go badly, they feel defective. That is not sensitivity. It is captivity. It means your peace is rented from circumstances, and circumstances are unpredictable landlords. The deeper reflection is that freedom, in the Stoic sense, is internal sovereignty. It is the refusal to let external disorder dictate your internal standards. This does not make you cold. It makes you reliable. It means you can love without clinging, strive without worshiping outcomes, and grieve without collapsing into meaninglessness. The mind begins to mature when it stops asking, "How do I make this stop?" and starts asking, "How do I meet this well?" A practical example is the flood of modern triggers that keep people in a state of constant internal emergency. The news cycle designed to alarm, social feeds designed to compare, workplaces designed to measure, and private expectations designed to punish. When everything falls apart, these systems do not pause out of courtesy. They keep demanding your attention. A Stoic response is not to become uninformed or detached, but to choose deliberate exposure and deliberate action. If you can do something, do it. If you cannot, do not donate your sanity to the illusion of control. Here is another reversal. The goal is not to be unshaken. The goal is to be able to return. The hard truth is that you will be shaken. You will have days when you cannot access your best thinking, when you are smaller than you want to be. Pretending otherwise only adds shame to difficulty. Shame does not strengthen you. It drains you. The deeper reflection is that resilience is not a trait you either have or lack. It is a practice of returning to first principles. What is true? What is necessary? What is mine to do? And what can I let go of without abandoning myself? The Stoics practice this like a musician practices scales, not because scales are beautiful, but because they make beauty possible under pressure. A practical example is the simple act of rebuilding your day when your day has been destroyed. When plans collapse, people often respond by abandoning structure entirely. They sleep irregularly, eat whatever, doom scroll, and call it taking a break, while their nervous system quietly learns that chaos means helplessness. A steadier approach is almost boring. Wake at a reasonable time, move your body, clean one small area, handle one essential task, speak to one human being you respect, end the day without self-contempt. This is not a substitute for solving the deeper crisis. It is how you keep yourself intact enough to solve it. Another reversal arrives here. Failure is not always the sign that you chose wrongly. Sometimes it is the price of choosing seriously. The hard truth is that many people avoid failure not because they are lazy, but because they are terrified of what failure might reveal about them. They treat outcomes as identity. If it works, I am worthy. If it fails, I am nothing. Under that belief, calm is impossible because every event becomes a trial. The deeper reflection is that dignity does not depend on winning. Dignity depends on how you engage reality. The Stoics admired the person who could lose without becoming bitter, who could be corrected without becoming defensive, who could be disappointed without becoming dishonest. Not because losing is good, but because character is more stable than fortune. And stability is what a collapsing life demands. A practical example is someone who is laid off and immediately spirals into a private narrative of being obsolete. The resume becomes an indictment. The silence from recruiters becomes proof of personal failure. But another interpretation is available. The market moved. The organization changed. Your skills are still yours. Your mind is still yours. You grieve, you update your materials, you ask for help, you learn what must be learned, and you refuse to speak about yourself as if you were a defeated creature. This is not positive thinking. It is disciplined thinking. Here comes a quieter reversal. Meaning is not something you find after the chaos ends. Meaning is something you create while it is still happening. The hard truth is that waiting for your life to become normal again can become a way of postponing your own existence. The future is not obligated to restore what you lost. If your peace depends on restoration, it may never arrive. The deeper reflection is that the human mind can bear almost anything when it sees a purpose inside it. Not a forced lesson, not a shallow everything happens for a reason, but a chosen orientation. I will not waste this suffering by becoming smaller. I will let it clarify what matters. I will let it strip away what was never essential. I will become more honest, more precise, more compassionate, and less easily intimidated by uncertainty. A practical example is the person who, after a personal collapse, starts living with fewer illusions, fewer performative friendships, fewer commitments made out of guilt, fewer purchases meant to cover an inner emptiness, fewer conversations that require self-betrayal. They become calmer not because life became kinder, but because they became clearer. They stop trying to control everything and start choosing what deserves their control. They stop arguing with reality and start working with it. Now the final reversal. Calm is not passive. Calm is a form of power. The hard truth is that when everything falls apart, the world will invite you to become reactive, to lash out, to numb out, to check out, to become someone you do not respect. Reactivity feels like strength because it is loud, but it is usually weakness in motion. The deeper reflection is that the highest form of strength is the capacity to remain aligned with your values when your emotions are at their loudest. This is not repression, it is governance. You do not deny the storm, you build a center within it. You accept the grief without turning it into a weapon. You accept the fear without turning it into prophecy. You accept the uncertainty without turning it into a cage. A practical example is the next difficult conversation you will have, the one you are dreading because everything already feels unstable. You can walk into it demanding reassurance, demanding control, demanding an outcome, and you will likely leave more anxious than before. Or you can walk in with a different posture. I will speak the truth clearly. I will listen without surrendering my self-respect. I will ask for what I want without pretending I am entitled to it. I will leave with my integrity no matter what answer I receive. This is what it means to stay calm when everything falls apart. Not to be spared the fracture, but to remain unbroken in what matters most. So when the world comes apart in your hands, do not rush to rebuild it with panic. Let it fall if it must. Stand where you are. Breathe, not as a ritual, but as a statement. I am still here. Separate fact from story. Separate what you can shape from what you must accept. Choose one honorable action, then another. And remember this, quietly, without drama. The day you stop demanding that life be easy is the day you begin discovering how strong you actually are.